Hola amigos! My name is Ian Gary and I am from the Children's Museum of Atlanta, and today we are reading Funny Bones, Posada and His Day of the Dead, Calaveras. Now what do you guys notice about this? There are all of these skulls and skeletons. Now they may look scary, but we're gonna see that sometimes they're not so scary after all. Skeletons riding bicycles, skeletons wearing fancy hats, skeletons dancing and strumming on guitars. We call these festive bony figures Calaveras. In Spanish, the word calavera means skull. A lot of things that are associated with skulls and with El Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead, are called calaveras. For example, there are calavera drawings, candy calaveras, that sounds yummy, calavera poems, and calavera toys. The skeleton figures are not scary. In fact, they look as if they're having fun. See? This guy especially looks like he's having fun. They are the creations of José Guadalupe Posada, and this is his story. In 1852, in a small house in the Mexican city of Aguascalientes, José Guadalupe Pasada was born. Lupe, as everyone called him, was the son of a baker and the sixth of 8 children. That's a lot of brothers and sisters. Lupe's older brother, Cerilio, became a teacher. He taught Lupe how to read and write. Lupe loved to copy the drawings he saw in prints and in books at school. Cerilio noticed how well Lupe drew and helped him enroll at the local art academy. That's a school for drawing. When Lupe was 18 years old, he began to work at Don Trinidad Pedrosa's print shop. There he discovered his lifelong passion for printing. He learned lithography. So, using a grease pencil, draw on a flat limestone. 2. Apply chemicals and moisten the stone with water. 3. Cover the stone with an oil-based ink. The ink will adhere only to the drawing because water and oil don't mix. 4. Use a press to print the image on a piece of paper. Repeat as many times as you wish. Lupe also learned engraving. He helped Don Trinidad print documents, diplomas, flyers, labels for matchbooks, receipts, and invitations for weddings and birthdays. Step 1. Draw on a piece of wood or a metal plate. 2. Using a cutting tool called a burin to carve around the drawing. This will cause the drawing to be raised above the rest of the plate. 3. Cover the drawing with ink. The ink will adhere only to the parts that are in relief, that is, raised. Use a press to print the image on a piece of paper. Repeat as many times as you wish. This is a press, and they call it a press because it presses down. After work, Lupe, Don Trinidad, and the other artisans would gather at the shop. They were unhappy with the job that the people in the government were doing. Don Trinidad invited Lupe to make some drawings for a small newspaper he was involved with. It was called El Jicote, the bumblebee. Lupe drew cartoons for the paper. This was long before he drew Calaveras. In one of his drawings, Lupe drew some local politicians climbing a pole and stepping over one another. By making the men look silly, he showed their greed and other bad traits. This is Lupe drawing, and this is the picture that he made. Don't these people all look silly? Readers of El Jicote agreed with Lupe's point of view and laughed when they saw his cartoons. That year, some of the politicians Lupe and Don Trinidad were against lost their elections. But some remained in power and were angry at them. To avoid trouble, Lupe and Don Trinidad decided to move to the nearby city of Leon. They were in a lot of trouble. Lupe lived in Leon for many years. He opened his own print shop, and everyone began to call him Don Lupe as a sign of respect. It's kind of like Mr. Lupe, but even cooler. He married Maria de Jesus Vela, and eventually they had a son. They named him Juan Sabino. In addition to his printing work, Don Lupe began to create illustrations for books and pamphlets. He also taught lithography to a local school. He became successful and well known in the region. But in 1888, a terrible flood destroyed a large part of the city, including Don Lupe's shop. Look at all this. Even the poor horse is not escaping. Don Lupe, his wife, and their son moved to Mexico City, the capital of the country. Don Lupe worked as an illustrator and a designer in several print shops. Eventually, he was able to open his own shop near the Zocalo, the city's main square. One of the men Don Lupe worked with was Antonio Vanegas. He published intriguing stories on large sheets of bright paper called broadsides. The tales were about a wide range of topics, including scary creatures, fire, miracles, violent crimes, heroes, bandits, cockfights, and bullfighters. Don Lupe illustrated many of these tales. Paper boys sold the inexpensive broadsides on the street for a few cents, and people, even people who couldn't read, bought them. They were fascinated by Don Lupe's drawings. See, look at that. El Valiente. This is a picture, of course, of the paper boy selling his papers. Don Lupe and Don Antonio worked together for more than 20 years. They were always busy, especially every November 1st and 2nd, during the Dia de Muertos celebrations. On those days, the city was full of vendors who sold pan de muerto, bread, cempasúchil, marigold flowers, and alfeniques, sugar skulls, and papel picado, paper cutouts. People bought these and other items to decorate the ofrendas, offerings that they made to their loved ones who had died. Also remember that my background is as an American Irishman, so some of these words are hard for me, and I apologize if I pronounce them wrong. For the holiday, Don Antonio and other editors published literary Calaveras. They were short, rhyming poems that featured a skeleton and made jokes about him or her. People found the poems very funny and bought them on the street from the paper boys. A man named Manuel Mania illustrated many of these poems for Don Antonio. Don Lupe also began to illustrate them, and soon he became a master at it. Calavera Love. This is one of those Calavera poems. It was a warm afternoon in the middle of May. Mr. Bones grabbed his hat and went walking that day. When he noticed a beauty on the opposite street, he ran towards her and kneeled at her feet. "You are the prettiest girl I've seen in my life. Please marry me, please be my wife." "I am sorry, senor, but that cannot be. You're handsome and all, but too skinny for me." He's all skin and bones. Don Lupe had a lot of work. He was busy all the time. He began using a printing technique that was quicker than lithography or engraving. It was called etching. Ooh. Step 1. Using a pen and acid-resistant ink, draw on a metal plate. 2. Dip the plate in acid. The acid will make the top layer disintegrate, leaving just the drawing. Cover the plate with ink. The ink will adhere only to the parts that are in relief, raised. 4. Use a press to print the image on a piece of paper. So this is what you get what happens. This is the relief that he made, and then this is the picture that happens. Don Lupe made thousands of drawings over the years. Only 100 or so are calaveras, but they are now his most famous images. Whether he made an etching, a lithograph, or an engraving, he had to draw the image in reverse, the opposite of the way he wanted the finished image to appear. So see, Like in this, you have the sword on this side, but on this side, it's not over here, but it's over here. So that is what you mean by it being in reverse. The inspiration behind some of Don Lupe's Calaveras is clear, but for others, it is not. Now we can try to interpret what they mean. During El Día de Muertos, Don Lupe surely watched people going to the cemetery. They weeded and repainted the gravestones of their loved ones. They brought food and told stories about them. Sometimes they hired musicians to play their loved ones' favorite songs. Look at that. That's what they're doing there. Don Lupe drew some skeletons dancing and partying. Was he saying that El Día de Muertos is not only a celebration of death, but also a celebration of life, a day when the dead become alive? That seems to be what he's saying. Look at all these skeletons dancing. This one's drinking. They have another guy eating cakes. This guy's playing a harp. And this guy's wearing a funny hat. One day, Don Lupe drew a skeleton wearing a flamboyant hat, La Catrina. The drawing was printed alongside a Calavera poem about the type of woman who puts on makeup and fancy clothes and acts as if she's better than everyone else. Can you imagine the woman who inspired that drawing? Perhaps she wore a pretentious outfit. That means it's like fancy, better than yours. And strolled through the park on a Sunday afternoon. She thought highly of herself, but acted mean and ignored others when they needed help. Look at these women. They're not being very nice. Was Don Lupe saying that no matter how fancy your clothes are on the outside, on the inside we are all the same? That we are all Calaveras? That's a pretty funny looking hat. Don Lupe saw his country, and especially Mexico City, change dramatically during his lifetime. When he was a boy, people walked or rode on horses or in carriages. Now he saw people riding on bicycles. He saw streetcars travel on tracks through the city. Everyone seemed to be going faster and faster. Look, they're running. Don Lupe drew some wild skeletons racing and trampling one another. Was he saying that we can try to go faster, but one day we will all reach the same finish line and become Calaveras? This one's got a really long beard. Just thought you should know. In 1910, when Don Lupe was 58 years old, a terrible conflict began. Today, it is referred to as the Mexican Revolution. Thousands of farmers and workers throughout Mexico were angry because they worked very hard but could barely earn enough money for their families to live on. The laborers grabbed rifles, machetes, sticks, and any weapons they could find to fight the government and the wealthy landlords it protected. But the rebellious groups that formed in different parts of the country did not work together. They began to fight not only the government, but one another as well, and things spun out of control. Thousands of people lost their lives. Most of Don Lupe's Calaveras are festive and fun, but the ones he drew about La Revolucion are aggressive and frightening. Was Don Lupe saying that sometimes Calaveras are not a laughing matter? Don Lupe drew some of the leaders who were involved in La Revolucion, like Emiliano Zapata and Francisco y Madero. His Calaveras were a way to criticize these men and express his own views. That's Zapata, and this is Madero. He would praise them if he agreed with their decisions and actions, but he would ridicule, that means make fun of, them if he disagreed with them, just as he had poked fun at the politicians in Aguascalientes when he was a young man. Now look at these two men here. Was Don Lupe saying that even powerful leaders one day become Calaveras? Don Lupe drew Calaveras of famous men, but he also drew Calaveras of the people around him, like the men who swept the streets and the people who worked at print shops. He even drew a calavera of his friend, Don Antonio. Was Don Lupe saying that Calaveras are all around us? That we are all Calaveras, whether we are rich or poor, famous or not? Don Lupe died on January 20th, 1913. Many people were familiar with his drawings and his calaveras, but very few people knew the artist who was behind them. It was years after his death that historians and artists such as Jean Charlot and Diego Rivera began to wonder who had drawn such wonderful images. Today, José Guadalupe Posada is not called Don Lupe anymore. He is simply called Posada, which is the way he signed his work. His art is celebrated in Mexico, in the United States, and around the world. Some people even dress like Catrinas and parade on the streets during El Día de Muertos. And on that special day, there is always somewhere an altar with an offering to remember the great Don Lupe Posada. What would Posada's Calaveras look like nowadays? Look at them. They're dancing. We got some people rocking out. There's a little girl reading a book, a dog, another book, some people skateboarding and stuff. Oh, we all know what this girl's doing, don't we? She's on her cell phone. So guys, that is Funny Bones. Did you guys have fun? I did. I certainly did. Now, it's very important for Dia de los Muertos to honor the dead and all of our previous ancestors. So let's take a minute to thank Don Lupe Posada. Thank you guys so much for coming here today. My name is Ian Gary. Please come visit the Children's Museum of Atlanta. And if not, have fun.